Hey, hey, hey. We're back as promised every week. Well, I guess we did just have an off week, so we're stretched, we're limber, we're ready for this odd two-game finale. I'm your host, Matthew Bartlett, the director of the Roost, joined by my good friend and co-host, J.P. Heath, the voice of the Owls, in the midst of basketball, football, everything else under the sun. Have you come up for air yet? How do you feel?
Tired. Got back to Heath Manor about 3 a.m., but no one cares. But yeah, it's and it didn't really hit me till really last night pulling in my driveway that, hey, it's kind of over now because of the way the football schedule stacks. Unfortunately, I have to miss a few basketball games in a row. That deep breaths can be had. So yeah, but pumped because, you know me, we're like-spirited in this, like-minded, that we love getting paid the truckfuls of invisible cash that we get to talk and watch sporting events. So here we go.
Yeah, there are rougher things to do for a living, I will say that. And especially when one of those things involves a trip to Birmingham, maybe Archibald, get some ribs. We have some options. We will consult our food recommendations here in a moment.
Okay. I'm learning a new one. I've never been to that one. So
this is good. This was a Bloomgren favorite, I believe. So we'll have to see if anybody else is making the trip out there. But you can't go wrong. It's Birmingham. It's barbecue. It's the South. We'll be fine. Big picture closing thought here. We'll tuck away Memphis before we get to the next game. Anything that after you had some time to take a deep breath and reflect that kind of sticks with you from that game?
Well, they fought. It's not surprising with the character of these guys that they continue to show up. And like we talked about going into that game, hey, the talent's there right after the Navy heroics, if that term can be used. They fought, they scratched, they clawed. It was never really a game where you thought, oh, if that happened, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people disagree and they can point to one moment. But as Nate and I were discussing, I think you and I shared a few texts that you never thought it was like, oh my gosh, that was so close. But Memphis proved that they're very solid in this league, not meeting fans' expectations, but that they showed that they're still a really good program relative to this league. And the high character guys were there. That doesn't surprise us about these young men.
Yeah, I agree with you on all fronts, and my big kind of picture reinforcing kind of like what we already know. I don't think I learned much. Like, this Rice team is going to be tough and going to be able to run with just about every team in this conference, period. So that just kind of goes to back that up. You know, unfortunately this year it's been on the wrong side of the coin, but look forward to getting back on the right foot against UAB, who Memphis beat 53-18. So you can't apply the transitive property to sports, full stop. Doesn't work that way.
Nope.
But I'm a bit more optimistic about this week's game.
Okay. And I do have to say, I know we'll talk about this some with the great passing matchup of UAB. Rice's corners continue to play among the best. The early trend was, hey, they played Army, later Navy, that two teams weren't passing. Rice's secondary stacks up second and that was the other thing I wanted to offload off the old bald chrome dome here, because Jeremy Modkin's a stud. Encourage, you just posted, Nate filled in for me, the Rice House Insider podcast, breaking down, talking to Sean Fresh, Max Ahoya, all that good stuff. But now we have the venerable and the cleanest teeth in all of American Athletic Conference broadcasters, David Crane, voice of the Blazers. Cleaning, root canal, what do we go with? The dentist.
Just the regular cleaning.
You're better than me. It's been years since I've been, Matthew, but David,
it's important.
Years, JP, they don't work you that hard.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just need to do it. Moved moved a bit down the road, so I need to get a new dentist. But anyway, fans did not come to hear our dental talk, but just had to get that out there. So it's been tough seasons for both of us. Before you logged on, Matthew and I were talking, hey, we still get to live in this toy department of life talking about sports, but just to ask each of the guests that were fortunate enough to get on, what's the snapshot of the season in UABville, Brother Crane?
Well, that's a good question. The record's not very good. The results, a lot of them have not been very good. You mentioned the Memphis game. That was a 10-point game at halftime, and it just got away from UAB. And that may be part of the picture, part of the season poster. Some good halves of football, but hadn't been able to really put 4 quarters together. A chance to maybe win at Arkansas, a chance to win at Memphis, a chance to win at South Florida. You could go down the list, but it's been disappointing. It's been, I think, surprising to the coaching staff. Trent Dilfer has said repeatedly that this team practices at a very high level. That what we see on Saturday is not what he sees during the week, and that's been part of the frustration, is how to get that to carry over from Tuesday through Friday into Saturday, and it's just been a struggle.
And if you could put your finger on one thing, because as I was looking through, and I remember following the Arkansas game from afar and the UAB game, I believe UAB has only won the fourth quarter once this year, and that was in a blowout against Army. What's been kind of this team's, because if these games were 3 quarters, maybe UAB has a couple more wins. I know Rice fans can relate. It doesn't work that way, but what's been the biggest thing with this team late that's kind of prevented them from pulling out a couple more of those wins?
It's been, and I guess that's the frustrating part too. I'm not sure you can just pin it down to one thing that's caused these leads or these opportunities. If they weren't leads, at least in the game, the opportunities to get away. Last week it was turnovers, 4 turnovers in the game, and just at some critical points. UConn similar, some critical turnovers at really bad times. That let UConn get out of here with a win, or helped UConn get out of here with a win. So it's been some defensive breakdowns. It's been a lack of explosive plays on offense. It's been turnovers. It's been penalties. It's been a little bit of everything. I would probably point to 2 things: a lack of explosive plays on offense that we enjoyed last year at a more frequent pace, and then the turnovers. I'm pretty sure I was looking at the stats and updating numbers. I think UAB is now minus 14 in the turnover margin this year, and it's just virtually impossible to win a lot of games if you are that bad in the turnover margin.
Tell us what's gone right when Jalen Kitten has been firing on all cylinders. Obviously, the pro pedigree in his own bloodlines, getting coached, I'm sure it's been boosted by Coach Dilfer in his illustrious career. What have you seen when Kitten is clicking? What does he do well? And what's a snapshot of him this year?
He has a terrific arm, and he thinks, and he may not be wrong, but he believes he can make any throw. Sometimes that's been very good. He threw a touchdown Saturday in Memphis that was just kind of jaw-dropping. But then there have been some times where he's tried to do too much, feeling like I think the weight of the entire offense is on his shoulders. And so there have been some forced throws that have led to interceptions. When he's run it, he doesn't run it a ton, but when he has, he's been a little loose with the football. He's had a tendency to fumble. So he is I think a confident young man, rightfully so. Got, I think, a ton of upside, but he hadn't just played a ton of football up until this year. He was at Florida, transferred, obviously sat out, and then took over as the starter, I guess, in the 5th game for UAB. So I think it's been fairly obvious that he's improved for the most part each week, but the turnovers, trying to do just a little too much, has probably held him back just a little bit.
And then what about the pieces surrounding him? Because it feels like UAB has always got another running back and then probably a receiver or two that can take it over your head.
Yeah, I think the pieces are there. The running game has not been as effective and as consistent as they would have liked. But Lee Beebe, when they give him the football, he runs hard. Very rarely do you see one guy bring him down. But they haven't had the consistent running game all year. Receivers, you got 2 or 3 guys that are, I think, all conference caliber, if not this year, maybe in the future. Amari Thomas and Cam Shanks have turned in some big plays for the Blazers in the passing game. They got a room full of tight ends and are using the tight ends well and in different looks. Had a chance to visit with one of them last night on our radio show. And in his career at UAB, he has obviously blocked as a tight end, caught passes as a tight end. He's lined up in the backfield and run the ball, and he's also thrown a pass. So they've got some versatility in the tight end room that they have tried to use. And in special teams, Cam Shanks, coming into last Saturday, was the #1 punt returner in the nation. Had run 2 back for touchdowns and just some electric runs that didn't go the distance. So their piece is there. Again, it's been a lack of explosive plays. And then once the quarterback change happened, when Jacob Zeno went out, it just takes a little time, I think, to get that chemistry right among all the cast members. And it's gotten better and better, I think, for the most part, as the season's gone along.
Tell us some things about the defense, because looking at the scores, I mean, you only give up 24 to Tulane. We had the full UConn experience, and that was just a game we played in the mud and just, let's get out of there. And they make things frustrating. But then you hold Navy to 10 points and Memphis, a talented offense like we saw recently. So I don't have to go over every score. You know the drill. But what's the flow of the defense and what stands out, like mentality? You know the drill. What stands out about them?
Yeah, I think they're better. The stats aren't going to just knock your socks off. Mm-hmm. But it was such a struggle last year to get stops that it was going to be hard to not be better this year on defense. And I think they have improved. I think the defensive line is better. There's a little more depth there. The linebackers have been really good. Michael Moore has made a ton of tackles this season for UAB. And the secondary, I think, has been very good. The pass defense all season long has really been pretty sturdy. Hadn't gotten quite as many turnovers, not as many picks as they would have liked, and takeaways total. But for the most part, the pass defense has held pretty strongly. The running defense has been a little less reliable, but it is a better defense. And I think there's some good young guys. Got a true freshman that started every game at cornerback. Some veteran guys in the middle and up front. So it's a good mix, but it is better, I would say, in every phase. But as you said, you play such diverse offenses in this league. It's rarely the same thing 2 weeks in a row, and so I think it's a challenge for every defense to get ready for games in this conference with the different offensive looks you get week in and week out.
And how do you think that has impacted UAB's overall level of success? Because I look at this, the best Rice and UAB at the top of the conference in pass defense, but the Blazers have been struggled so much against the running game that it's almost, has it kind of limited how high the ceiling of the overall defense can get, do you feel?
Probably so. If we could scratch Army and Navy from the schedule, I would like the odds of our pass defense really shining and helping out our run defense as well. But it's UConn came in. You guys have seen them with one of the better running games in the country, but I think what some folks didn't really notice, you saw the rushing game numbers. and people just looked at those and ignored the fact that they're good in the passing game. They're a tremendously balanced offense, and that's what they did to UAB. They kind of threw a little bit early, had some success there, and then I think UAB may have shifted attention a little bit, and then the running game really kicked in, and they were almost perfectly balanced against UAB. As I said, I think it's just such an interesting league. You see so many different looks offensively in the American that it's got to be a challenge for defensive coordinators when they roll in on a Sunday or a Monday to start prepping for the next game.
Finally, most importantly, fans just waiting for your tips, dining, and other recreational activities there in the Magic City. We're Dreamland folks. I know y'all had your coaches shows there for a while. I don't know if I think you still do, right? So
we're not at Dreamland anymore for the radio show. We have switched to a national chain that excels in chicken wings. So not to give any advertising on a rival network, but my goodness, you can trip over the sidewalk and wind up in a great restaurant in Birmingham. Yeah. So it all depends on sort of what you're in the mood for. There's some spots right downtown near the stadium. And if fans are coming for the first time, I think you'll really love Protective Stadium. I think the weather's going to be nice. It's going to be chilly, feel like football, but hopefully a lot of folks will be making their first trip to Protective. But seriously, I mean, Birmingham's food scene is awfully impressive, and I think folks are a little surprised at just how good the food is when they get to Birmingham for the first time. So I'm happy to give recommendations, but it's a long list of good spots to eat here in Birmingham.
I like it. Hey, we'll see you soon. Thanks for doing this, and I can't wait to see you. I guess this will be my second trip out to Protective, but a second what David says. It's a great new spot in the league, and always like our trips there. And thank you, good man. Really appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Safe travels.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Great David Crane from UAB, longtime voice for those Blazers. One thing I did, Matthew, full confession, I think this is well, no excuses. No one cares, right? You're tired. When I was breaking down the UAB defense, do you know what I did?
What did you do?
I looked at Rice's scores, and I was saying,
the rundown.
Man, your schedule is really similar to ours. You only gave up 17 to Tulane and 24 to Tulane and 17 to UConn. And narrator Morgan Freeman voice, they did not give up 24 points to Tulane. That was the 71 to 20 game that they lost, but
just a little different. Yeah, I heard you say that. I was like, I'm not really following, but okay.
Yeah, so it happens.
Under the bus.
So I just I want to get that out there. That yes, for the first time since 2015, that one time the third quarter in a game, I made a mistake. So,
is that right?
Yeah, just had
good on you. Good on you, JP.
Yeah, let me break my arm patting myself on the back. No, but David is as good as they come, and second his thought on some good grub there in the Magic City. But you steer this thing, brother man. What do you think? How are we going to cuss and discuss this one?
Well, as you mentioned, the schedule being similar, there actually are 5 like opponents.
Yeah, that's what I think tripped me up. Yeah,
between UAB and Rice, and I thought this was an interesting nugget. I put this in the game preview. That's over on atheroost.com if you want to go check it out. But the game preview I pulled, I said, okay, you compare the 5 like opponents: Army, Navy, Tulane, UConn, and Memphis. Those are the 5 teams that both Rice and UAB have played this year. The average margin of defeat, because unfortunately these are teams with a lot more losses than wins, for Rice is 7.4 points, including the Army blowout. Rice has lost by largely, those are the best teams in the conference, plus UConn. So Rice has lost by a touchdown. For UAB, are you holding on to your seats? The average margin of defeat in those same 5 games that Rice was a touchdown under is 30 points. UAB is losing by an average of 48 to 18.
Yeah, that's not nothing, as we would say in the Pines.
It's
That's
not good. That's 3 touchdowns. That's a lot of touchdowns.
mhm.
So
then,
I don't know.
right as we said, introducing my friend from Birmingham, their transitive property, can't figure into it. But when you have that big a sample size, Mr. Numbers, not to pull back the curtain on your spreadsheet in wizardry there with the data, what does that tell you? I mean, you this late in the season, like I think I said a week or so ago, you don't play the game on paper, but it tells you a story about these two teams matching up.
I mean, I think the story it tells, and I'm not trying to get ahead of myself, but Rice should crush this team. This is what I think. Like, maybe that's too forward, but if you look at the progression that the Owls have had this season, minus the red zone, which counts, they've continued to be better and better on the offensive side of the ball. And the defense continues to be, if not the best, one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the conference. So you put it all together late in the season, Rice has continued. Like, we haven't had an Army event where you just no-showed in a month and a half. UAB had one last week. So that, again, no transitive properties, but this is a team that, you know, the guys in that locker room still care. So I think it's okay to, whatever this matters in the grand scheme of things, to kind of have some hope that this can be a get right game of sorts where frustrations and angst of how a season didn't go right could go right on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
That's my gut feeling. How far off I am? How much do I need to rein myself in on expectations for this one?
A wee bit. I do not think, for the UAB faithful watching this, I do not think it'll be a blowout. And when you see Matthew Bartlett's clip playing at Protective Stadium to try to motivate the guys, I want as much distance as possible. You know me, and we always joke on and off here about how I'm trying to get my somewhat slimming body. You know, I'm doing better up on that tightrope. I'm trying to balance this going both ways. But no, I don't think it'll be a blowout either way, because you look back at the story of this rivalry, for whatever reason, the godfather of all Rice sports information, Senior Chuck Poole, busting out the number again. I had it on I was doing a preview for the basketball game last night and talking football and kind of getting in the gridiron mode and I remember these games, all except one that I called, but going back to UAB and winning in Birmingham, when Rice has won at UAB, I'll be more succinct in saying it, the average margin has been 4 points, Mr. Data. So take that. So that's why I don't think the storyline, I would not turn down a big blowout like you predicted. But I just think it'll be a close game because Rice has had issues sustaining drives. They've had some issues. They did a little better against Memphis in those third down conversions. I think a lot of that's the Matt Sykes great story that continues to evolve. So I think it'll be a closer game. But yeah, I think Rice has the advantage, but at the same time, they've still got a lot to play for. That doesn't change anything. I think the UAB guys still have a lot to play. You're like, what are you talking about? No, all of these guys on both sides, they've got a lot to play for in this one. Not just the pride, but maybe more on the UAB side where they'll be next year. I think a lot of these Rice guys will stay, but yeah, I don't know what all I said there, but I'll let you.
A lot of things.
Take the grenade.
Can I ask you a philosophical question? And I asked Coach Alomar this during the presser on Tuesday, and he has become a mastermind of using lots of words to say little things.
Why did you look at me when you said that?
What to do sometimes? You're the only other person here with me, JP. You and all our friends listening in. But I asked him because UAB is dead last in the conference in rushing defense, and Rice is dead last in the country in rush attempts this year. They just, for whatever the reason, they don't want to run the football. So here's the philosophical discussion as you prep for a game plan. You have built an identity that doesn't revolve around running the football. You can do it. You just don't do it very often. and you're coming up against an opponent that Achilles heel, the worst thing they do is stopping the run. What do? Do you lean into what they're bad at the expense of what you don't do as often? Or do you kind of stick to your guns and run about the same rate and just take advantage where you can?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm pulling up the exact number because, like you said, and this goes back to, again, caveat being, I don't pretend to be JP football, and I defer readily to Nate with a lot of the X's and O's. I know enough to get in trouble, but I never, ever want to come on and say, this is what you have to do. But the data, Brother Bartlett, when they do run the ball, the
good.
yards per attempt, it's been there.
This guy, Dean Connors, is pretty good.
Yeah, was it 5.9? I'm looking for two things. Per attempt, Rice on the season is 4.8, which is above average. The first half of the season, it was around 6 yards. But, and I'm thinking of Dino. Dino's numbers on the season, he's still averaging almost 5.5, and so is Q-Jack, Quentin Jackson, 5.5 yards. So the guys that'll get a majority of the carries are those high average yards per carry dudes. So, yeah, I think that, again, people probably don't, just to know, I don't have any insight in the game plan. They're not.
They haven't asked me.
They have not asked us. But yes, I think that would be very wise to news alert here to take advantage of another team's weaknesses. I think that would be one thing to look at doing and control the clock that way and not allow some of those big playmakers on the field for them.
Yeah. Newsflash, Dean Connors, good at football. Official stance of the Blue and Gray preview show, get the ball to Dean Connors. I thought that was interesting. A couple other things going through when you look at, you closed our intro with talking about the corners and how the Rice defense has done. When you look at an offense like this that has kind of, lived and died on the explosive play to some point, they have some of those pieces. Is there anything that you think is interesting with how these two sides of the ball match up in this one?
As far as Kitna against the Rice corners?
Yeah, Kitna and some of their playmakers, Shanks on the outside in the slot. I guess they'll put him everywhere.
Yeah, Shanks is the unknown to me because I haven't looked at film, my version of film on him. Just reading and like what David said about his, I really would be more concerned on the special team side of him. But with what Coach Alomar has done and with his new staff, the new roles of the staff members that have taken over the special teams game plan, I don't see them really giving Shanks much of an opportunity. I don't see how they would. And Connor Hunt has come on and done a really good job. So when you say Shanks, I think Hunt has done a good job in his directional punting, and Baqueta, when he can have the wide field open up, he's done that. So I think when I hear that name, I think that. But they've done a pretty good job against those number one quarterbacks, which Kitna is shaping up to be. Like David said, he can spin it, he can throw it, and has the confidence to make all those throws. But there's the corners are so physical for Rice. I mean, Fresh will tell you he should have had that second interception. I think that was the second quarter.
Yeah.
So I really, I think people think, oh, you're supposed to say that stuff on the Rice group. I think the two best coached positions, I say that, I don't know if I've said this in this setting, but it's the corners with Coach Montkins and the D-line with Cedric Calhoun. My bias being Coach Calhoun's an amazing dude. I don't know Coach Montkins as closely, but he'll give me some nuggets and wisdom. But just look at the data.
Also good dude.
Yeah, exactly. And I know enough to know that, but I've known Coach Calhoun just a little bit longer. But those two units, I could not be more impressed with any position coaches than they're not taking anything away from any group. That's the caveat we add. But I really like the Rice corners matchup against most other QBs this week, not excluded.
Yeah, results are there. Go run out those same sets of guys and do what you did last week and the week before. Rush the passer and make sure nothing goes over your head. That's been the formula for this team for about a month. And the defense has turned in sterling performances for about game-winning performances good enough to win football games. I'm sure there's a better way to say that, JP,
No.
but that's my official opinion on the Rice defense.
It
Well,
made sense to me. So
that's
it
what
made
counts.
sense now. Yeah.
Somebody else, you and anybody else who is paying attention. That is all we got this week. We got JP. We got one more of these tiers. We'll come back next week. We'll talk about the regular season finale against South Florida in a game that should be interesting. Senior Day, all the festivities back at Rice Stadium, 1 p.m. Shout out for the early games. Big fan of those. I don't know if that's a controversial opinion or not, but yeah, we're in.
Hey,
so that's all we got.
No one cares, but especially USF, because a certain team in College Station is playing a certain team in the ATX for the first time in forever. And me, as a true neutral observer, I can't wait to sit down and watch that one. I don't know your thoughts on it, but
you're not dropping $8,000 on a ticket to go see that game.
No,
It's
I have
wild.
tried in the past to use my connections to get into those types of big events. And after about the third time, I get it through my thick head, like, stop bothering me. You're just go away. So,
We'll see. We'll be there. We'll watch some other football. It's the fall. Go eat some turkey. Watch Peanuts. All of the above. That's all we got. Thank you guys for tuning in and sticking with us. We will be back next week, one way or another. Rice Fight.
never dies, baby. Never dies. Where's this clip here? Not as much effect when I can't put the thing up there.
Boom.
So what's the rib place we're talking about?
Archibald's.
Archibald's. Okay. We got Dreamland coming up, I think.